All right, welcome back to Comp 229 shopping cart. So first things first, your first release. All right, so this is where we're at last time. Let's continue with the technology that we have to implement for the shopping cart. So first things first, what we need to do is we have to think about this as an additional model. So up until now, we've had this idea of a we've had the book model, right? And the book model is looking like this. In the models folder, or the model folder, we want to create the cart model. So we're going to make a new file. Again, just as an aside, what we could have done here is we could have made a models folder, and we could have made a book model, book-model subfolder, right? And that might have organized us a lot differently than the way this is right now. However, in the book, and I don't think it's a bad idea, is all the models should be in one folder. Let's just put a new file, and we'll make this the cart model. So the cart model, we still want to use injectable, okay? And that is from Angular core. And what we also want to use is we need actually the book, right? So we need to use book, and we need to get that from the book model. Okay, so that we need those two pieces of information. Okay. Then we're going to use the @injectable sorry, we don't need that. We want to use the @injectable decorator. We want to export the class that's called cart, if I can type properly today. All right, so, wow, cart, I said. So, we have something called lines. So, okay, lines is kind of like, and we're going to talk about this. It is a cart line array. We don't have a cart line yet, but we're going to talk about what that is in a second. So for now, it's not going to compute. Cart line array, which can be an array. Okay, so we'll talk about this in a sec. What is cart? What are lines? We're also going to have an item count, which is going to be equal to 0. And this will initialize to 0. We're also going to have a public cart price, which is going to be equal to 0. So item count is how many items are in the cart. Cart price is the total price collected of all the cart items. Cart items, the cart line, each line is going to be a cart. A book object that has one or more count. So let's say I want to order 2 books. 2 of the same books, and I want to give one away to a friend. I can add that to the cart line. So each line is like a line in the cart. That's what it's going to be. All right, so that is the class. Now, one thing that we're going to note is there is no constructor for this, but we're going to have what we're going to have instead is, because remember the cart itself is a model, so it doesn't have a constructor. It's almost like if you think about this as struct. So let's make our class. This is going to be an inner class that we're going to use. So, well, not kind of an inner class, but another class called cart line. That's the way I'm going to start first. So cart line is going to have a constructor, because this is going to be a class. It's going to have 2 things. It's going to have a book, which is of type book, and it's going to have a quantity, which is of type number. All right, so that is what the cart line is. Each line in the cart is going to have those 2 things: a book object, the book that you're ordering, and how many of that book do you want. Okay. By the way, like it says in the PowerPoint that we're using here, we could do is we could use the same pattern. And you notice I'm using the same pattern that we used in the PowerPoint that I gave you. That's inside of the our module here, our module 8, which is instead of a book cart, it's going to be a product cart. And it doesn't matter how we look at it, the pattern that we're showing here is the same. Okay, so carts, we have a cart line, we have a lines, which is a array of objects that are called cart lines. That's what they are. And now there's no analog for this on the Express side yet. We're going to have to create this. That's a kind of backwards, but we're going to have to create an Express model when we actually connect our Express site to this thing. All right, next. So, no. What we want next is the private function, which we are going to call addLine. So what addLine does, it takes a book, which is of type book, and it takes a quantity, which is of type number, which we're going to start off as 1 by default, right? It's going to return void. And what addLine does is it says, okay, we're going to get a line. Line is going to be this dot lines, right? Dot find, and for every line inside lines that match the book ID, right? Where the ID is equal to the book ID, where the ID is equal to the book ID, then what we want is for if the line is not equal to undefined. Notice we're using double equals and even for the not equal, that's it's exactly not equals. That's what that means. Exactly equals. Then we could say that this needs a space. So for every line in lines, we're going to find the line that matches the ID of the book that we're passing in. Okay? Okay, that's what it works. So we're looking at the book. We're looking at the book list. And we're taking the book, we're adding it in here, and we're adding as part of this lines array. That's what's happening. And we're increasing the quantity by 1. If I add more than one book of the same type, we're going to increase the quantity for that particular line to 2, 3, 4, whatever. Else, I'll be okay. This dot lines dot push, and we're going to push the new cart line, if it doesn't exist, of book and quantity. So that means is if the book doesn't exist, but there's not a line in the cart that exists that has a book, right? That book that we're adding in, just make a new one. That's what's going to happen. And then we're going to call this dot recalculate. This dot recalculate, which doesn't exist yet, which we're going to get to. Recalculate is actually going to recalculate a total. All right, next, another utility function. It's going to be, let's not make this private. We're going to say update quantity. Update quantity is going to give a book, which is of type book, and a quantity, which is of type number. And what we're going to say with this one is const line is equal to this dot lines, and we're going to go find the line that it matches the product ID or book dot ID, where book ID is equal to book dot ID, and then we're going to say if our line, similar to what we did before, if line is not exactly equal to undefined, so it's not undefined, then what we want is that the line quantity is equal to, we're going to cast it as a number, quantity. And then we're going to recalculate. Okay? So what does this do? So we're going to pass in a book object and a quantity, and we're going to find the book object that exists. We should make this triple equal. Triple equal again means exactly equals. So it's both the value and the type are the same. For JavaScript, that's very important. Okay, cool. Next is remove line. So we can remove line from the cart. And this is, we're going to take the ID. And what we're going to say with this one is the index that we want to remove from is this, this dot lines dot find index. And we're going to say where the line is the L dot book, the line dot book dot ID is equal to, exactly equal to ID this time. And then we're going to say that this dot lines dot splice, right, is take that index from the index 1. Okay, so one object. And this dot recalculate again. Recalculate again is going to recalculate the size and the cost of the cart. So if you remove a line, it's going to recalculate the new cost again. We also can clear the cart. Clearing the cart is an option we can do. We can say that this dot lines is equal to this. Now in other languages that would be bad, but in this, because we do automatic reference counting in JavaScript, and we do garbage collection, that's fine. This dot cart line is equal to 0. So this just sets everything to 0. So we remove everything from the cart and set things to 0. And then finally, the private recalculate function. This is a helper function to help us recalculate everything. We're going to say that this dot item count is equal to 0. This dot cart price is equal to 0. This dot lines dot for each, where lines item count plus equals to lines dot quantity, and this dot cart price is plus equals to line quantity multiplied by line dot book dot price. So what this is saying is, hey, return every line and just recalculate for every line, get the item, increase the item count for each line quantity, add the line quantity to the item count, how many items we have, right? And also for the cart price, take the quantity for each of the lines and multiply by the book price for that particular line, and then increase the cart price by that. Okay, so that's what recalculate does. So it just, every time we add, remove, or anything else, we recalculate. And that, my friends, is the cart model. Cart model right now still not connected. All right. Next, we want to go to the model, model module, this one, model module, and we want to add the cart to the providers. So again, the easiest way to do that is go cart, and we can look at this, which adds cart to the cart model to the providers, and then we're good. We connected our cart to the model module, and because the model module, which is a feature module, has been added to the app module, cart now is something that's also added in there. Okay, next we have to make a new component for the cart. One thing is we want to call this the cart summary component. Cart summary. just like we have our, and this is something new. It's going to be going into the store module. So in the bookstore, we're going to add the cart summary. Okay, now, this is where it's still part of the bookstore. We still have a bookstore component, but we're going to have a brand new component in here. So there's a couple ways to do this. One, make a brand new folder called cart summary. Cart summary. I don't think that's a bad way of doing things. The only thing that has to change in the cart summary folder, which is a totally different thing, is it's still part of the bookstore though. So, you know, it's kind of part of the bookstore, but it's a separate object. And this is where you could put it as a subfolder of the bookstore in this case. So bookstore and then cart summary component, because the cart summary component is a part of the bookstore, but yet necessarily it's not necessarily something that we want to put separate. Okay. One thing to note is, remember we kind of talked about this, which is this is an opportunity for us to restructure, right? Think about the store as the overall component, the overall folder, and inside the bookstore we would have the cart summary component, and inside that we'd have a bookstore module, right, which is going to carry everything forward. So let's do it my way, which is going to be, and all of a sudden we know we have a problem because we say that it says the base page, it says, has a problem with the contact component, and we have a bunch of errors right now. Just what I would say is ignore the error right now because we're still working on the stuff that we're adding in. Okay, we're going to fix the problems that we have here because it was fine before, and suddenly we have two problems. One is missing white space, and the other one is the header component itself has a bit of an issue, right? It says Elementor unknown word, right? FA Elementor. That's just nothing that's really crazy. Who cares? That's a warning that we're getting from a spelling perspective, so it's not really a problem. But this stuff that we're adding in is the stuff that we've been adding. And again, what you may want to try and do is save all. So file, save all if it was available, Control KS, which is not. So it's something else. We'll get back to it. We'll figure out what the problem is because up until now, everything's been great. Okay, next, let's just skip that and add a cart summary. So what we want to do is I want to go and add a new PowerShell, and I want to say something like this. I want to say ng gc create, so generate component. Oh, we have to be in the right folder, and we're going to be in the source app folder. And in the source app folder, we have the bookstore. So we're going to go in the bookstore, and we're going to put the cart summary component. So we're going to say ng gc book-store / the name of the component, which is the cart summary component. And ta-da, we got that. There's cart summary. So cart summary is a subfolder of the bookstore, which makes sense. Again, I would probably rejig this whole thing and make the bookstore component as some, kind of a subfolder of the store component. But anyways, let's continue here. So one thing to note is it may have tried to add this into the app module. So let's check to see if it did that, right? So far, so good. It didn't do that, right? Because we added the cart summary component into the bookstore component. It's looking for a module, bookstore module, and you can see now that it's nicely put this cart summary component in there without us having to do a lot of work. And if you notice what this does, the cart summary component, right now it doesn't do much, right? One thing that we have is a constructor. We should probably add a cart object. So in the constructor, we can say that public cart, which is of type cart. You can see that that automatically adds that object nicely. And that's all we would need for the cart summary component, that one part. The next part is that we'd want to put in the next part, which is under the cart summary component, we would want to add in the HTML. So here's the HTML. Notice this is just a placeholder. Let's do it. So we're going to say div with a class of float right. Inside that, we're going to have a class of small, or an object that's small. Inside that, we're going to have a span. And beside that, we're going to have another span. And that is going to be two spans and a button is one thing we're gonna have. So let's add a button next to that span, and then inside that we're gonna have a button with a class of button dash small background dash dark and then text dash white. Okay, that's the button. And inside the button, we're going to have an I tag with a class of fa-shopping-cart. Okay, so that's kind of a long line, but if you actually click on this little link here, it does boom, and it creates everything you need. I'm just going to put this at the next line, and we'll put the button on the bottom, and then you can see that that is kind of what we want to start going with. This is the structure we want to start with. All right, so under the small part, we're going to say your cart. For now, this is where we're going to start. And then we're going to say that in this first span, let's put the spans underneath each other because we're going to add some information in here. We're going to say the span is star ng if, this is new, if the cart dot, again, item count, if the item count for the cart is greater than 0, that's that's the deciding factor or the condition. Then what we're going to say is that cart.item count is what we're going to put in there, items. So we have this many items in the cart, and we can say that, followed by cart.cart price. And what we want to do is, just like before, we want to filter the currency. We're going to use a pipe. That's what this is called. And we're going to say that the symbol is what's going to replace there, like the $sign. And we're going to do the same. We're going to use the same precision. So that's that span. The next span is going to be another ngIf. So ngIf says only if it exists, then do. ngIf. We're going to say ngIf cart item count. If that's equal to 0, then we want to start with empty. So we're going to say that we're just going to use the word empty. Okay. So that's the two conditions. One, if it's greater than 0, and one, if it's equal to 0. And if it's equal to 0 for now, we're going to make it empty. Later on, we'll change this and make it nicer. All right, then we want a button. That's the proper way of looking. And the button should be under text white. We'll put that in there. We'll say that it is disabled if the cart.item count is equal to 0. So that's when it's disabled. So it's disabled if this is the case, right? And then we want to add the shopping cart with no other image, or no other text, just the shopping cart itself. And that should create the shopping cart experience for us in terms of the stuff that we need. Okay, we're going to fix up these errors in a second. Next, we need to import our new cart summary component inside of our store feature module. Let's make sure that was done correctly, because maybe it's not. So again, here's our store feature module, a store bookstore, right? So this is where it has to go. And we have our counter directive. We have our cart summary. This is what broke it, right? So cart summary component. Imports, we're going to do model module, browser module, and forms module. Our declarations are going to be as they were. And our exports, oh, look at that. We're missing on our exports, we've never used the cart summary component because our declarations, we've declared it, but we've never exported it. So we're going to have to say cart summary component, which is what we need to do, because if we don't declare it, then it won't move past our module. All right, now, so that's the first part. The first part is, hey, have we connected it and everything else? Let's try and fix this problem. So this problem seems to be whenever we kind of serve it up. So let's stop this, and let's see if we can compile by doing the same thing. Ng serve -- open. Sometimes we need to do this kind of stuff because I want to see what the error is without being, kind of a ton of errors down here, which is a real pain. And we're getting cannot get, which is totally fine. So it says this is good. So this is kind of where we went to do an ng serve right here. And that's why I wanted to clear the screen, because I wanted to see what the problem is. It says base app is an Angular component, and verify that it's part of the module. Base app is not a known element. And it says that inside of our home component.html, that's where it's there. And we went through this. This is all working fine, but maybe it broke when we did our last piece, which was when we made our pages. And what we're looking for is our app base page. That's our partials in here. Here's our partials. So base page component is part of our partials. We're getting it and we're exporting it. And then in our app module.ts, our partials module is here. And then our pages module comes in. Again, I don't think this is an issue in terms of order. I think order doesn't actually matter at all, especially when it comes to the order of when we do the imports. I don't have a feeling, I have a feeling this does nothing, but more or less what my thoughts were, maybe that the partials module should come before the pages module, because pages depend on partials. But I'm probably wrong, because that didn't really... Oh wait, so that's interesting. So it compiled successfully, and then we have this error in the home component. It says app base page is not a known element. Let's go back to that home component. So this is something that we did break somehow, but we just didn't notice. So home component, and it says, all right, base page component. And you know why it's like this? It's like this because when we have our pages module, right, from an imports perspective, we didn't import our base page component and our partials, because this is just like declarations. But the browser module, forms module, we probably want to do here is we want to make sure that we depend on the partials module, which is kind of we're using dependency injection for this, right? So this is our partial module. Let's save this, but we're going to have another error now, right? So, well, that shouldn't be the case, but okay. But that kind of fixed it. Let's see if that's true, and it fixed our problem. So, yeah, that looks like we're okay now. Maybe not. And let's inspect. What is it saying? Live broadcasts. And I'm just going to kick off that module again, just to make sure. I don't think this is the issue personally, but hey, ng serve -- open. But we may have to remove our partials module from the app module, and it's because we're using dependency injection. We'll see how it goes. Because we're importing it here, but we're not exporting it. Maybe this is what's happening. Well, it looks okay when I rejig it, but that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes you have to rejig, right? Looks okay. Looks fine now. Yeah, so let me recap what I did, why I did this. I did this because, and I kind of try to do it over here with just the order, but the order doesn't matter. Whenever we import stuff, Order doesn't matter here. Where we get into trouble is if we try to export again. So what I did for the pages component, because pages depend on base page, right? All the pages depend on base page. And because our feature module goes through the app module, then what it needs to do is really, if you think about what this is, partials can't live without pages, right? Can't live without it. So theoretically, partials should be part of pages. Should be, right? And partials will have its own little app module. So like it could be layered inside of here. Again, we could restructure this, and maybe we will later on. But the reason why it needs, the partial module in here, right? We need the partial module to be an import is because about, context, home component, product component, service component need the partials module in order for them to have to inherit from it. Because remember, what we did was in the home component.ts, we extended the base component module, but we don't know about it because it's now not part of the app module.ts directly, so it caused a bit of a problem. Now, here's where we can run into trouble. Let's suppose that instead of our page module going through our app module, right? Our partials module here. If we assume the partials module is only needed by the pages and nothing else, then we can do something different. Okay, we can say that the partials module then is, we get this, we export all the pages in here, but in our pages module, we can do something else. We can say that the pages module that gets the partials module, we can actually export that too. So we can say something like, hey, let's export the partials module. We could do that, right? Partials module, we could do that. Now, we have to be very careful when we do this, because once we export the partials module from here, that means we can't import the partials module from here, because then we're doing it twice. So this has got to go. Just the pages module gets in here. And then let's see, when we rejig this, does it break anything? Looks like we're good. Let's do, yeah. That's what I was thinking it's going to do, right? So app footer and an Angular component, but that verify is part of the module. Yeah. Again, I'm just trying to tie into this stuff. Our pages module. Did we save everything? File, one unsaved, save all, and yeah. Let's just, for posterity and clarity, just do that again. So let's do ng serve ---- open, just to make sure we have our final version, right? And I'll explain what I did. We're looking good. We're looking really good. So again, let's just bring this in there, and we're looking at good functionality so far. No cart yet, but we're not there yet. So that's good. That's really good. And I'm happy about that completely. This is good. Okay, but what did I do? Why did I bother doing that at all now? Well, again, it kind of goes to what we're doing, right? So we're saying the following. We're saying that, hey, we have these pages, but pages depend on partials. There's a dependency that we're doing in there. Can't do pages without partials, right? Any of these pages, about, contact, home, products, and services. So theoretically, partials should be part of the pages folder because it's a partial page. Yeah, right? But then there's pages inside pages, and it creates this other dependency. Later on, what we'll do is when we rejig, we'll do some refactoring and move partials into pages, which means we have to rejig some of these pathing areas here so that they show everything properly. But for now, we're good. Continuing. So we made our, we did a bunch of stuff, but we want to go back into the bookstore component. Here's our bookstore component. And the bookstore component now, what we want to do is we're going to also inject the cart, which is going to happen inside of the constructor. So we're going to say that we're going to make a new private cart of type cart, this one, which is going to inject this properly inside of our page. This is good. Right? We're going to put these actually leave it there. Okay, and let's just make sure that we have a comma here to figure that out. There we go. Wonderful, wonderful. We're still good. And then what we also want to do is we want to under page count. So let's go to page count. And we don't need this anymore. Page numbers, we just left it there for last time, but we can get rid of it. We can say that we want to add a book to cart, add book to cart. And the add book to cart is going to take a book, which is going to be f-type book, and it's going to return void. And what we're going to say in here is this dot cart dot add line and whatever the book is. Okay, so we need to put that in here because we have to modify the HTML in a second to allow us to add the book to the cart. Okay, because we don't have that functionality, then we have no cart. All right, now let's get into the changes that we have to make to the store component.html, which is here. Okay, so yeah, we have to do a couple of things here. One is at the top, right? What we want to do, well, first of all, the cart summary. This is something we have to think about too. The cart summary right now is like way out here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take that cart summary and we want to inject it inside of our partials page. Okay, that's what we want to do. But for now, what we're going to do is just to show the cart temporarily. We're going to show it up here. We're going to just go above the books on the same page. We're going to do a cart. So cart dash summary. And by the way to know this is if you look at the cart summary, the component is app.cart-summary, app cart summary. So that's what we're adding up here, app-cart summary. Okay, and this is just temporary. We're just going to put this temporary in here, and we're just going to wrap it in a div tag so we can see it. So I'm going to say div tag, which is going to be with a class of container fluid. Actually, a div tag with a class of row. No, I was right. Container fluid. Container dash fluid. We're gonna fix this in a sec. But inside there's going to be a div with a class of row. Inside that, there's going to be a div with a class of column. Background dark, and then text white for now, just so we can see it. And then we're going to fix it. And then followed by the cart summary. So we're going to say get all this so we can see the cart, right? And we're going to put it inside of our area in here. Okay, just so we can see it. And this is just temporary. Temporary cart. Okay. So where is this? If we go back out to here, right, you're going to have this empty cart here. Okay, and we can't add anything to cart yet, but I wanted to put it there. Now it's kind of separating this part, and the reason for this is because of our container fluid stuff that's happening here, and where this is in terms of our stuff. We probably put it in the wrong spot. Yeah, so we'll take this out of here. I meant to put it I probably meant to put it way up here. Yeah, well, we'll talk about this, but maybe way out here. Yeah, that's where I was hoping to put it. So it's kind of a temporary spot. It makes our nav bar look fat. And it's only going to be when we're here in books, right? So we don't want this here. We want it in here on a nav bar. Eventually we'll go there, but for now I just want to see it. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted. Next, what I want to do is we want to add another part to the product description. So where the product description is on the bottom, right? We want to add in the div tag, so in this area here, for each product book description, we want to add a button. And we're going to say that the class of the button is button dash success, and then button dash small, and then float right. So make a button appear on the right side of the screen. Inside the button, right, what we want to do is here, we want to say that we're going to make click events. Like this is how you do events again, just a reminder. We're going to say the add product, add book to cart event. That's what it is. We're going to pass in the book that we've clicked on to the cart, and we're going to say add to cart. Okay, that's the button. So that's going to provide the button that we need, so that way we can add a book to the cart. And now you can see that we have this add to cart thing, and it's there. Look, you can add as many as you want to the cart. You can add it twice, and it'll calculate the proper amount. Okay, so that's the little cart we have here. Pretty cool. And that's really all we want to do so far. Now, what we want to do is we want to actually see some, we want to be able to test the dummy data a little bit to make sure that it works properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to inside of our model folder. And let's just make sure that we close this part off too. Yeah, we're going to close all these items off because there's a lot open right now. So we're going to close all these editors. And it makes it a little cleaner. And what we want to do is we want to go to our models folder. Now here we already have a static data source. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a REST data source. This is the first time we're going to be using our dummy data, right? And the only way that can work is if you run Json. Remember that thing that we did last time? So let me show you that again. We have to, in another PowerShell window, and we have to be inside the client here. We're going to have to npm, we're going to call Json. Or actually node, I believe it's, yeah. We're going to run Json with this. We're going to say node, or actually let's look at the package.json file to tell us what to type in. Just want to make sure that I have everything closed off here, but just so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's your package.json, and you notice that it's like, if I said node JSON, so if I said node JSON, then it's going to run this little error, and it says it says cannot find module JSON. Well, I want to run this. So I'm just going to type it in here. So JSON server data.js minus p 3500 minus m auth middleware.js. I probably spelled that wrong. Auth middleware. It says JSON server. The term JSON server is not recognized in the name of the commandlet. Sorry. And just, this is not going to work without this. So I make sure that I've got everything good to go, because otherwise we're not going to make this go in any way. I want to make sure that that we have everything in order for us to make this go. Because otherwise, we're going to have an issue running this server afterwards. We don't want that. Ah, yes, of course. I'll be okay. npm run Json. That's what I meant to do. So it's running on 3500. Yes. So now that it's running on 3500, it's run this command. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, good. And because it's running, we have access to this data that we had before. Okay, let's go back to I think we're good to go here. I just wanted to go back to our code. This is the code here. And just going to run back all the way down to where we were before, just so we can finish this module here. And then we can end for today and for this week. All right, so what we want to do is we want to add a REST data source. Instead of a static data source in the models folder, we want to have some real data, or mock data. So we're going to say new file. We're going to call this rest.datasource.ts. And we want to import, actually, let's do it the sneaky way. Okay, so we'll try and see if we can get this done the sneaky way. So we'll say, instead of this, we say const protocol equals to HTTP. And we'll say that the const port is equal to 3500. And then we'll say @injectable, right? @injectable. And that should have prompted to do what we needed to do. It did. Take a look at that. So that did it. But it doesn't like, what this doesn't like is these double quotes. So it should be single quotes like this. @injectable, export class, right? So instead of me having to type everything, is REST data source. We want to call this base URL a string. And in the constructor function, what we want is private HTTP, which is the HTTP client. Okay, HTTP client. HTTP client, that's funny. And let's see if it's actually going to recognize if it's there. We're going to come back to that. We may have to type it in after all. I was hoping to kind of get away without doing it, but hey. I guess there is no other way of doing it. We're going to have to import our HTTP client, and that's a service, right? This is the way we're going to connect to our Express module as well. Angular / common / HTTP, which is where we're going to get our connection for this. REST data source should actually be called REST data source. That's the right way of it being named. And we're going to say inside the constructor, this .base URL, we're going to define it as backtick protocol. So we're going to inject the protocol constant, colon, / $, $, and we're going to say that the location, right, dot hostname is the next part, and then we're going to go $ port /. So what this is basically is going to come up with a base URL. It's going to say, hey, protocol HTTP colon, and then the location is 127.0.0.1, port 3500. So that's where it's going to look for the base URL for now. We're going to change this later on when we connect to our API. Then get books, right, which is going to return an observable unobservable. And the observable that we're going to return is of type product book. Notice how that adds that in. Array, a book array. And it's going to return this .http.get. We're going to make a GET request with a book array. And we're going to pass in this .base URL plus book. Now it says products, but we're going to pass in the base URL plus book list. That's what's going to happen. Okay, and we're going to fix this book list a bit. Okay, because now we're going to get an actual product from it. The static data source didn't care. Here we didn't care about what we're carrying. As long as we come in here, we're good to go. It'll return all this dummy data. But now we want our dummy data to be more customized, more realistic, and that's what getBooks is going to look like. All right, so now that we've done this with our REST data source, we're going to have to tweak this a bit. What we need to do next is we need to use it inside of our model module. So we're going to go to our model module.ts, and instead of using our static data source, we're going to not use we can leave it there for now, all right? But what we want instead is we want to do a couple things. We want to import, let's do imports. I want to import our HTTP client module. HTTP client module. This one. So that's the first thing. So notice that that gets added in right away. Our providers are still the book repository, the static data source. We'll keep that for now. Our cart. As well as we can also add in an object, which is provide our static data source, followed by use class REST data source. And that kind of puts in the rest of everything that we need in here. So now what this should do is, if we've done everything correctly, which we may have not done it correctly, it should align everything as we need it to connect our data. So now let's take a look. We've got some errors. This is okay. This is our template URL bookstore.component, and it says our app cart summary is an Angular component, then verify that it is part of this module. And if my app cart summary, do we have anything to save? No. Okay, so this app cart summary is something we should probably export as well. So pretty sure is what we want to try and do, the cart summary. We don't have a cart summary in here, but this is our model module. Our model module, and then cart summary component comes from the bookstore. So I'm just trying to follow the logic here. So we're getting an error that says the app cart summary is an Angular component, then verify that it is part of this module. And this is under the bookstore component.html. It says, appears that ng module imports of app module, but itself has errors. Appears in the ng module. Okay, let's see. So HTTP appears in the module imports of model module, but could be not be resolved to an ng model class. Let's just check it. Book repository, static data source, cart model, REST data source, HTTP client module is this. HTTP client module here, book repository, static data source, and cart. We're going to provide a static data source and use class REST data source. These are all good. Okay. And again, I probably want to try and just recompile at this point. ngserve minus minus open. Actually, it's just an ngserve. We don't have to open, it's already open. And we should be able to connect. Then we can open it again. It's not funny that it gave us that error for a second, and now it's not giving us that error anymore. Let me just kill this, and let's do that again. ngserve minus minus open. I think it's because what we've done is we've changed our data source altogether, and because it's connecting, we're going to try this in a second. And the thing is, the bookstore is something we have to make sure that we have open. So it's this. The reason why we're not getting any data again is because, well, let's take a look. Let's inspect our console and see the kind of data. Yeah, see, this is the kind of thing that I want to see. So it's basically saying that the HTTP response is trying to find book list, and, well, there isn't a book list. It says 404 not found. So let me show you this. I understand how to fix this now. So in here, it's basically giving us the 404, the actual server. And we had this kind of problem before, because what it can take is books and orders, not book-list. Why this? Because if we just Control-C for a second, and if we go to that configuration file that we had looked at before, which is in the auth middleware, we said books and orders. What we're going to have is we're going to have book list and orders, book list. That's the thing we have to have in here. And let's see what happens when we do that. So we're going to go up and run it again. This still says books and orders, and that is an issue. That is definitely an issue, because if you don't have books, these are the two paths that we have: books and orders. Books and orders. We have book list and orders, but it's not showing books and orders. A book list is what we want, right? Because that's the path that we want for the book list. And remember, there was two parts to this. There was this part in the data.json file, and this is what it's looking at: books and orders. So this is our book list. So just to fix this, book list. And notice how book list does not compute because of this. We'd have to put this inside of something that looks like this, which is totally doable. It's not a terrible thing to do. But here we're going to have to rejig this part to make it run. And there's book list and orders. So that is jigged properly now. It's correct. Orders is looking down here. That's what's good. And so there's no orders, an order, empty orders array, and book list is up here. This is the path that we're going to look at, find, right? Okay, let's go back to this, and we're good. And let's go back to this and refresh. And we should have all the book data, which is what we have. You can see that there's iRobot. We have some information. You can see all the authors: Frank Herbert, Greg Bear, Isaac Asimov, and Larry Niven. If I only see one of Frank Herbert, I only have one from Frank Herbert. We're going to add other books in here just to give us more information. Greg Bear, Isaac Asimov, Larry Niven. So we can definitely sort through this. And then I can add to cart, and you can just say one item to cart. We don't know what our cart is. I can't click on the cart yet, but we can definitely add to cart. All right, so this is pretty good. We've got to the point now where I'm pretty happy with the fact that we're getting data. Okay. Now the next piece is that we want to fix that cart really temporarily. So we know that a couple of things. We know that this cart summary thing right now is inside of the bookstore up here. This is this temporary thing we made. We want to get this object out of here, and we want to put it inside of the partials in the header. So in the header, what we want is that at the end, we want this another list item that we're going to have our cart summary inside of. Now it's a little bit tricky. It's not impossible for us to get it done, but we're going to say, I'm going to say that, sorry about that. I'm going to say that it is a little bit more challenging than what we have here. So I'm just going to refer to my notes because I've already done this part. And I want to make sure that I have everything that we need, which is going to be something that's fairly straightforward in the partials folder in the header of our files. So let's take a look at that as we open this up. Open with code. Open with, let me see here. We're going to have, just looking at my code here, I want to make sure that we have the proper stuff that I can use to make sure that we are okay with this. I don't think it's very complex. I'm thinking it's probably just a list item with a nav like this. List item with a class of nav item, just like the above. And inside there, we can put our app cart summary. Now notice that it doesn't app cart summary doesn't come up. Why? Because our header component doesn't know about it, or app cart summary. Okay, so how can our header component know about it? Well, again, there's a couple things we can do. One is we can check to see, remember that this is an effect of what our code behind file is. Okay, that's the way it would work, right? So what we want in here is that the cart summary should be either imported in here, right, as an example somehow, or it's part of the app module. So let's go and look here in order for us to make this work. All right, app cart summary, because remember, app cart summary is here, app cart summary, right? But it's here inside the cart summary, and what we do is in our bookstore module, the cart summary component is declaration, and it's also an export. There's the cart summary. But in our app module, right, when we import, right, here's our imports. What we want to do is maybe we need some kind of connector to pass through, because now it's going to be a dependency for our module. We could also include it. Here's something we can do. We know that it's part of our cart summary, is part of our structure, but we want to put it inside of our header. So here's something we can try and do. Okay, and we can try and do this inside of our folder here. We could say something like this. We could say that we want to pass the cart summary in here, right, as a component, right? But the problem is that our header component doesn't really do that. It doesn't do that at all, actually. We know that in the partials module, we can import something. So we can say that I want to import the cart summary component. Let's try that, so we have access to it. So we're going to say that we're going to, we want to, let's put in the import. We want to import the cart summary component, right? Cart summary. And it might be a declaration or an import. Let's see how it goes. So we're going to say cart summary component, which is there. And if we save this, let's see when, because this is our base page, footer, and header component, right? Let's see what this does in terms of our class. So we're going to go here, going to save this, and let's see if it's known now by our header component. So here's our header component. It's incoming. And we're going to say cart summary component. Put this inside there. I don't think this is going to work this way, to be honest, because now we still don't know about it. See that? But meanwhile, our module, when we did it the other way around, so this is our cart. Let's undo that change. That's not correct. So our header component, right, we need a dependency. It has a dependency of cart summary component. Just like our page component, pages had it was depending on the partials module. This is okay because partials was the dependency for this. But notice that my partials module that came inside here was not exported, right? Or sorry, it was exported but not declared, right? Meanwhile, if you look at the app module structure, right? App component was a declaration, but the imported stuff was in here, right? Not part of the provider or a declaration. Only app component was declared. So what we did was actually correct if we want to try and include it as part of the app component. So if I go back to partials module, we want to import but not declare it. Here's my cart summary, right? We could pass it forward, but if we pass this forward, the cart summary component, we got to be careful because then it's going to be trying to be used by the other components, right? So the thing is, cart summary component is here as an import, and it should tie everything together, but it doesn't. So this is going to be a problem, right now. We're going to solve this problem. Maybe what we'll do is we'll wait till the next video to do it because this video is running way longer than I would like. But this is a problem. This is what we want to do. We want to do this, okay? But we can't do this cart app summary component because app cart summary is a component that doesn't belong in this module, right? Now it says that if app cart summary is an Angular component, then verify that it is part of this module. Okay. There is no header module, right? There is a partials module. The partials module does have this as part of the module, 100%, right? It's right here. We may have to rejig it, but it's giving me an error, and this is a good indicator that something is wrong. This is a pre-compile error. This is not a compilation error, right? Even though it shows me that there's a problem here. If I control C and I do ng serve, it's going to give us the same problem, right? Because we know this is an issue. It's not going to just clear up the error. See? And you can see how this works, but this is a good error. This is what it says is app summary component appears in the ng module imports of partials module, but could not be resolved to an ng module class, right? Is it missing the ng module annotation? So that's something that can't be kind of imported here. But it's funny enough, when we entered it here inside of our, we had here, maybe it's going to be a declaration instead. Let's put that as a declaration. So instead of partials module, making this a cart summary component, a module, because it's not a module, it needs to be a declaration, and we're going to declare it in here, which should fix the problem, which it does. But then we have another issue. Okay, it says that the export class cart summary component implements on init, and it says is declared by more than one module. Yes, I thought this was going to be a problem. So I'm thinking that it cannot be part of the, it cannot be here. It can't be part of the bookstore component anymore. But we need to. So let's go into our bookstore module. So you can't declare it. Can't declare it. Can't be declarative here. But, or we can declare it, but we can't export it. We can only export it once. So this is not something we can do. We can't export it from here. We can use it. If we don't export it, then we can't use it anymore. Notice that it says partials module, blah, blah, blah. Undo. And maybe if we just did this, if we didn't use it, then does it work? It says that cart summary component implements on init. That doesn't matter. It says is listed in the declarations of ng module bookstore module. Is listed in the declaration module of partials module. So one or the other is what it's saying. Can't be declared in both places. Bookstore module. Did we list it? Did we not save this one? And now, of course, we have to remove it from, I know why, because now we have this problem. We can't do this up here, so let's get rid of this, because it's the temporary cart anyway. So we would never wanted to use this here in the first place, which is why it was giving us an error there. But okay, it's in the cart summary component and the says that the component is declared by more than one ng module, but we didn't do that. We may have to rejig this because we don't use cart summary. Pretty sure, make sure we just don't add to pages. The cart summary component is here where we added in, but we didn't put it as part of this, right? We didn't include it here anymore. We did include, we just have to, I think we have to rebuild because I don't have anything pending. ng serve. If we do, I want to look at that detail again. Yeah, see? Isn't that weird? All right, that means that if I go here to this, we should see the cart on this right here. Yeah, look at that. Your cart summary, right? And that should still work. We should still have that. Now, the problem with this is the nav item should be, it's of type, it's a text item, which is what we want to put in here. So this is just a minor thing. So what we have to do is inside of our, and just sorry, as we rejig this thing, inside of our partials header, inside of our header component.html, we should mention this as not a nav item, but actually is a nav text item. And to show you where you get that, if you go to get bootstrap, and if you go to documentation, we did this before, under components, under nav bar, I believe. Then further down under the nav area, there is nav text. And notice that the class is navbar text, not navbar item. So this is what we need, navbar text, as opposed to navbar item, navbar text. Save that, recompiles, go back up, get rid of this, and now we should be able to refresh, and this should be correct, but it looks like it's dark. Let's just do one more recompile, ng serve -- open. Because what it's going to do is now, oh, that's why it's navbar text. Yeah. That's better. One thing I don't like about this is that it's kind of running together with this. So notice that your cart empty, and I added thing, and you can see the cart there, but it's kind of colliding with this. Maybe what we want is the cart here, and then this part on the bottom or to the right. So if we want it to the right, that means we have to change our app cart summary. So if we're going to go to our app cart summary, let's go back there. So that's inside of our app cart model. HTML. So we have our item count and all that stuff, and then we have the cart at the end. We can put this button at the beginning. We're going to say small button. We want to put this at the beginning, and we're going to put the cart summary at the end, like this. And that might look a little better, more natural than everything else. Guys, this has been a long video, but we're finally stopped for now, for today. Next week, what we're going to get together and do is we're going to add in our authorization, as well as the ability for us to monitor our order, change our order, take a look at our order, and actually check out. You can't check out right now. All we can do is add to cart. But for today, you have everything you need to satisfy your requirements for getting together your first release, which is going to be, again, due this week, or sorry, next week, Friday at midnight. All right, so that way you have a chance to get everything done by this week. You're supposed to do your contract, so you should have that done by this Friday. But by next Friday, you're going to have this, and you have enough information here with some examples, both in the PowerPoint examples that have been included in the course shell, as well as this other example that I'm providing you here, a running example as we go from week to week. Okay? If you have questions, please connect with your instructor, and he can help you with your first release. All right, thank you, and we'll see you next week.